and much more. I'm Neha Vashishth and today, like every week, I have Mr. Chirag Muni with me. He's the Executive Director at Anand Rathi Wealth Limited. Thank you so much, Chirag, for joining us today on ET Markets live stream.
Thank you, Neha. It's always wonderful to speak to the viewers.
Well, same here. And for the audience joining us today, our topic of the day is how to start planning for your retirement in 40s. So, my first question to you, Chirag, is how important is it to plan for retirement?
Oh, it's absolutely important, right? Nobody can stop retirement, right? At some point in time, you're going to stop working and you're going to, stop earning.
Hmm.
Unless, of course, you have a business and it's a continuity. But most often and not, people do choose a date where they want to retire and relax.
Yeah.
So obviously, that day is going to come, and is why it becomes one of the most crucial steps in financial planning, where you start thinking about retirement and build a corpus so that whatever hard earned money you have accumulated, you can live off that money for your regular expenses. So I think it's a very crucial step, and everyone should have some plan in mind as far as retirement is going.
All right. So, a lot of people start pretty early for retirement, but since we are talking about 40s, people in their 40s, what do you want to tell them? Is planning in a 40s too late, or there is still hope?
No, I mean, of course, as soon as you start earning, or as early as you start, is always good. But I think 40 is not a bad age, definitely, because obviously, most often and not, people would want to retire at a later stage, unless your retirement, you've decided you want to retire very early. It's a different story. But generally, people
Hmm.
do prefer to retire around 55, 60, 65, right? So that's the
Yeah.
age that people would look at. So you still have 15, 20, 25 years to build a corpus if you have not done so far. So I think it's
Hmm.
definitely a very good age. I think at 40, but yeah, that's the age you definitely really need to be serious about
Should
your
get
retirement
serious about
planning.
that.
So
Yeah.
that,
Okay, so Chirag, let's start with the initial steps that are required whenever someone is trying to plan for their retirement. So, how to start when it comes to 40s? What is the first crucial step that one needs to take?
I think the first step, of course, is writing down your expenses. Determining what
Mm,
your expenses today are, because what your expenses today are not going to be same
mm,
uh, 20 years down the line. Inflation is going to be added to it. Yeah,
mm,
assuming you're going to maintain the same lifestyle, of course. If you add to the lifestyle, then obviously the expenses will add further. But even if you were to maintain the same lifestyle that you're maintaining at 40, you really need to know that what are you spending today, and what would be that number 20 years down the
mm.
line if I need the same money monthly or yearly,
Yeah.
and what kind of corpus I would have to build. So I think the first step is definitely determining what kind of expenses do I foresee in the future. One is my regular expenses,
Mm,
and if there are larger withdrawals that you are likely to do with some goals that you would have set for yourself, then you need to first plan for that, and basis which you will be able to work backwards in terms of how much do I need to save today, so that
mm,
I build again a reasonable corpus at 60 when I'm not earning, and I'll be
mm.
able to spend. I'll be able to make money out of that, which can help me to take care of my regular expenses.
Okay. And how important is it to set a corpus goal? Because a lot of people start putting a random amount in their retirement fund or wherever they're investing, be it NPS or any other tool that we have in the markets. But uh, how important is it to have a set goal, and how to determine that that goal is enough, will be enough, including the inflation part also?
Absolutely. So bang on target, like you said, that people do it randomly.
Hmm.
It is important that you have a plan in mind. So, like I said, let me give an example. Let's say I have a 1 lakh rupee expense today a month,
Hmm.
which means I'm going to spend 12 lakh rupees right today to
Yeah.
maintain my
Hmm.
lifestyle. Now that same 12 lakh and inflated at a rate of about 7%, which is the average inflation that India would have. Then
Hmm.
you're talking about you would have to spend 46 lakhs to buy the same items that you buy today, 20 years down the line.
Hmm.
It means you'll have to build a corpus in such a way that gives you that 46 lakhs yearly, so that you can maintain your lifestyle. So if, and of course, that itself will inflate for the next 15-20 years. So you need to build a
Yeah.
reasonable purpose 15-20 years down the line. So in this same example, if you do a 1.2 lakh rupees SIP, for example, and that grows at
Hmm.
about 12%, then by if you start at 40, by 60 you would have a corpus of about 12 crores. So that
Hmm.
12 crores will be good enough to take care of your 46 lakhs and growing for the next 15-20 years, because the average expectancy today, of course, published is about 67, 68. But kind of medical innovation that is happening,
Hmm.
people outlive 67, 68, 69, right? Where
Yeah.
75 is what at least people should plan for, 75, 80.
Hmm.
So that's where you will require 20 years of expenses to be taken care, and hence you have to start today and work backwards.
All right.
That's
So,
one, of course.
yeah.
Sorry, point number two, I just wanted to add to it. I'm really sorry. Is
Sure.
that you'll also, during this 20-year journey, it's not going to be constant, right? You'll also withdraw some money.
Hmm. Right.
So,
Right. Right.
whatever expenses that you might have. So, as a thumb rule, you should try, and if you're building a retirement corpus, then you should
Hmm.
not withdraw, more than 5% of the overall corpus built on a regular
Okay.
basis. At least you should try not to do that, so that your corpus is outlives the inflation and the
Hmm.
expenses that you want to take care of.
Okay. And what about the asset mix when it comes to retirement planning? A lot of people earlier, before maybe like people who were retiring in the 2000s or 90s, they even, I think last 10 years, till last 10 years, we had people who were very, very strongly uh, towards the fixed income instruments that we have, like fixed deposits or something like that. But I feel that nowadays people cannot survive without putting their money into equity. So, what do you think is the ideal asset mix, and what is the expected return when it comes to planning for your retirement?
So absolutely right, Neha. Of course, you need to, like I said, inflation, if it takes away your purchasing power, you will not be
Hmm.
able to buy the same things that you're buying today, right? So you
Yeah.
will have to generate that real return over and above inflation. And currently, of course, equity is one of the best asset classes that can help you to achieve that. So while
Hmm.
you're accumulating or while you're building your corpus, I think you have 15-20 years to go. Definitely, you can be slightly aggressive on equity,
Okay.
and once you have built that corpus, let's say at you start at 40 and you build a reasonable corpus at 60,
Hmm.
then I would say the way to look at it is, still you don't need to get into everything into fixed income, which is what normally
Hmm.
people do, like he said.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because again, inflation is not going to go away, right? So
Hmm.
what you got to do is determine your next 3-year expenses after 60, because till 60 you're still earning, you're still you're building a corpus, but you'll still have some
Hmm.
savings to spend from. But after
Hmm.
60, for example, when you retire, you don't have any earning, so you need to the expenses out of your portfolio, you're eating away out of your portfolio. So what I would suggest generally to clients is that determine the next 3 years expenses,
Hmm.
uh, that much money with some contingency extra. So, for example, let's say 2 lakhs is my expense
Hmm.
per month, which means I'm going to spend 24 lakhs
Per
in
year.
a year, which means
Hmm.
3 years I'll be spending 72 lakhs, right?
Hmm.
Adding some contingency if you require, for example, then at least out of the corpus that you have built, let's say 1 crore, you keep it in a very safe fixed income kind of instrument, so that
Hmm.
you can systematically withdraw from it for your expenses.
Right.
But the rest of the corpus you're not disturbing, because it still has some 15-20 years
Hmm.
to go till the time you're there, right? So then you're still earning that real return over and above inflation, and you're not disturbing your portfolio, because if you want to make real return, then you'll have to
Hmm.
give time to your portfolio.
Right.
It is not a short term thing, right? So, but you still have 15 years. So create two baskets. One is a consumption basket and one is an
Hmm.
investment basket. As soon
Okay.
as you build a corpus, for 3 years, you can build a consumption basket with some contingency, and the rest of
Hmm.
it can again be part of the asset allocation that you're doing for a long-term perspective, and you can have that kind of equity allocation if you want to. So I think that's what you can look at from an asset mix perspective. But when you're starting, I
Hmm.
think 80% equity,
Okay.
20% debt, and generally for earning professionals like salaried people,
Hmm.
you have also an EPF component, which is employee
Yeah.
provident fund, which is
Yeah.
actually very good debt, right? People forget about it. That some part of savings is going into that. So if that part of
Hmm.
money, that could be about 15-20%. 80% of the money can go into in the form of an SIP or lump sum, whichever way is comfortable to you.
Okay. Okay. And what kind of returns that one can expect when it comes to equity and debt?
So if 80-20 split, I think 11-12% kind of return is quite probable from a long term
Hmm.
perspective, because the debt portion, if you have EPF, of course, the interests are 8.5%. But if you have a
Yeah.
mix of fixed income, then you're going to talk about 7.5% you can make from there, and the rest of 80% can draw you more than 12-13%. So net
Hmm.
on an average, you can make about 11% on the overall
Okay.
portfolio.
All right, all right. And under the debt portion, now one can go for PPF, EPF, and all the fixed instruments such as FD. That's fine for the debt portion, right?
Yes, yes, absolutely. So EPF, of course, because
Hmm.
that's tax free to a certain extent.
Hmm.
PPF is also tax free to a certain extent. Only thing is, of course, you don't have liquidity in that case. But while
Yeah.
you're building
Yeah.
at the age of 40, you have 15-20 years, so you can look at EPF, PPF, which is very good instruments.
Hmm.
FDs, of course, are not very tax efficient, so it can be
Hmm.
from a short-term perspective, but not from a very long-term perspective. And even now, debt mutual funds are taxed as good as FD.
Yeah.
Another option that you could have is arbitrage funds from a short-term perspective, because
Hmm.
there the returns are like debt, but the taxation is more efficient because they are taxed as equity. So short-term you get 15% tax and not full tax.
All right. Okay. So, next thing I want to discuss is about some other expenses that one can encounter in their lifetime. What are the other expenses that most of the people forget to calculate while planning for retirement?
Oh yeah, there are several, but if I have to name a few, one is of course your lifestyle expenses, right?
Hmm.
What you're spending today as lifestyle, you might want to upgrade your lifestyle, right? You are traveling
Hmm.
in a train now. Everybody travels in a plane now. Everybody wants to look, to the right side, to to premium economy and business as well. To if you have that kind of
Hmm.
aspiration, obviously the inflation then keeps adding, right? So if you so the lifestyle expenses is very important, that you need to visualize as to what kind of lifestyle you want to lead, and
Hmm.
basis which you have to account for that. Nothing wrong with having aspirations, but you have to account for that is the point. Number one. And number two is medical expenses. I think that, of course,
Hmm.
the kind of lifestyle we all have. Obviously,
Yeah.
medical expenses is something that can take away large part of your corpus if there's something goes wrong. So you need to
Hmm.
really have a good health cover
Hmm.
for yourself, and you'll have to spend some premium on for that. But it's better to have a health cover which is takes care of reasonable corpus for your from a medical perspective. So that's
Hmm.
something that I think these are two important expenses. Sometimes you may forget.
All right. And anything additional you would like to add when it comes to maybe traveling or anything else like family?
Yeah. So one is, like I said, lifestyle upgrades. The
Okay.
apart from that, obviously, now the basic. It's not about food, health, and shelter, right? It's all about
Hmm.
what kind of life I want to live. So everyone wants to travel every year. You want to
Hmm.
spend on your family sometimes. So all of
Hmm.
those expenses, you may have some other responsibilities like education or marriage, etc. So all of
Marriage.
that
Yeah.
needs to be kept in mind, because that can eat away from your portfolio for building your retirement corpus.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
retirement corpus ideally should be have a separate goal, and that should not be touched.
Hmm.
If you're going to eat away from your retirement corpus, then you can have an issue when you're actually reaching that age. So all of these needs to be accounted before you plan for your entire corpus, right?
Right. And how important it is to create some kind of planning to reduce debt, because a lot of people, there's absolutely no one in the world who doesn't have any kind of EMIs or loans. So with what's the easiest way to plan for it so that one can be financially free, um, to invest in the right places instead of just trying to get rid of the debt?
So, I mean, whatever you're earning, I think you should not have more than 20% of it as part of your EMIs. You have to really,
Hmm.
be obsessive about that number, because people
Hmm.
do leverage themselves beyond a point, and then they get into a debt trap. Getting
Yeah.
into personal loans, credit card loans, without understanding what kind of interest rate, what kind of fine penalty I'm going to get into. So, all of those
Hmm.
things, really need to keep in mind. Of course, at times you will have to leverage yourself. Let's say if you want to buy a house, then
Hmm.
it can't be that your entire salary is going to take care of it to some extent. So you'll have to leverage yourself. But whatever salary you are getting in hand,
Hmm. Hmm.
whatever income you have on a monthly basis, have a thumb rule of not 20-30% more of that should be part as your EMI. Otherwise, you will always fall in
Hmm.
that debt trap. And again, building a corpus would be difficult. So I think it's a difficult balance to have, like you rightly said. But you really need to plan for it.
All right. So now the next thing I would like to discuss with you is that since the person is in 40s already, the person has lost a lot of time. So whatever the portfolio is about, maybe it's equity, more of debt, whatever is the ratio, how often should one review his or her portfolio in this case? Because since a lot of time has already gone by, so uh, reviewing, as we know, will give an idea to the person whether the strategy is working or not. So how often should one review the portfolio?
So two things. I would say the asset allocation should
Hmm.
be reviewed at a 2 to 3 year period.
Okay.
Because once you have strategically decided that 80% or 70% will be in equity and 30% will be in debt, then
Hmm.
you should not probably disturb that, because unless you give time to it, you're not going to get return. There will be some bit of volatility. So the asset
Hmm.
allocation mix should be reviewed every 3 years. Whether I should be,
Okay.
if I'm 70 today and if the market has run up really high, should I want to rebalance? So that
Hmm.
is something that you can see from a 3 year perspective. But the product allocation within that, let's say from a equity mutual fund perspective, let's say you have 70% in equity mutual funds, that
Hmm.
has to be reviewed every year, to my mind, and on an annual basis. That how much am I large cap, how much am I mid cap basis, what's going on. Of course, you have to take it. You can take help of various advisors, financial
Hmm.
advisors. The point is, you still need to review it, whether my product allocation is right. Asset allocation
Hmm.
at a larger level, which is 3 years, and a product allocation, the product mix that I want to change, because products keep changing, tax efficiency keeps changing,
Yeah.
market cap allocations keep changing. So all of that you need to look at on a yearly basis. But overall
Okay.
asset allocation, I would say 3 years.
All right. So earlier you mentioned about health insurance. So I want to talk about insurance in general in depth. So is insurance a part of retirement planning? How important is it? And what do you think about insurance as a tool? And which types of insurance are must for people in their 40s?
Oh, absolutely. I think, see, insurance is, of course, it gives you that cover. But
Hmm.
people again do a mistake of, getting into unit-linked insurance plans where you're mixing
Okay.
investment and insurance. I
Hmm.
think that of course, a lot of plans insurance companies are coming out with, which are very good. But the objective should
Hmm.
be clear. Am I buying this for insurance or am I buying this for savings? You
Hmm.
can't do both. Even if you're buying a ULIP, you should be sure that you're buying it for investment and not for insurance, because pure term insurance is the cheapest insurance you can have, where in case something happens to you, your family will get the money or the nominee will get the money.
Hmm.
Build that reasonable, for even for a 1 crore kind of plan today. I
Hmm.
think in 10,000 rupees at an age of 30-35 is what the insurance cost is, right? At 40, maybe it will be about little higher, right? So you need to have that reasonable term insurance, pure term insurance for yourself. What could be reasonable? Of course, it will depend on person to person, family to family. But you need to determine what is your liability today. Let's say I've bought a home loan, and my liabilities, residual liabilities, 3 crores or 2 crores, which I still need to pay to the bank. That is one liability that you have. and plus you want to leave something for your family as well, right? If something happens to you suddenly, so should I add something to it and take a insurance cover accordingly? So you need to plan for yourself.
Hmm.
Of course, a lot of insurance companies have this thumb rule of 20 times your income or 15 times your income, but it all depends on how much you're earning, right? If somebody is earning
Hmm.
very good, then 20 times cover may not be required, because
Yeah.
beyond the point, it is only to secure your family members for their future lifestyle, A.
Hmm.
B, to take care of their liabilities so that they don't have to fall in a debt trap of paying off your liabilities.
Hmm.
Uh, and they are dependent on you. Your family is dependent on you. So I think determine that number right. What is my liability, A? And
Hmm.
B, what could be my sort of expenses for my family if something happens to me today? So do that,
Okay.
assessment, and basis which you take a term plan. Second
Hmm.
is definitely have a medical insurance. There is no doubt about it. India, as you know, in India, of course, we don't have social security that
Hmm.
extent. So you would have some medical insurance from your, usually people who are salaried, they have medical insurance from their companies. But people do
Offices.
miss.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but people again, do forget that you should buy your own medical insurance as well.
Hmm.
Uh, Even though the company is paying from, but because it is only there live till the time you're there in the company.
Hmm.
So if it's not there, and suddenly if you decide to do something else, or if you leave the company or whatever, then you might not have that cover.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when you start buying it later in your life, the premium becomes very expensive. So it's very
Hmm.
important that you buy the medical insurance, even though if your company is paying for it, and have a reasonable cover, because medical expenses are also going through the roof. If you really want good medical, medical take, people should take care of you in terms of good medical care. Then and have good hospitals. Then obviously you need to spend for it today.
Definitely. And I think over the counter prices are really too much when it comes to the hospital part, and insurance does help when it comes to all these sudden issues that erupt sometimes, and you might not have liquid money, and at that time I think insurance is something that really saves you. So definitely. And one more point I think I would like to ask you is that when you get your insurance, your health insurance from the companies, so basically they give you a very minimal coverage, so that might not be sufficient for you also. So maybe you either need to increase that coverage, or maybe get a separate one that works for you and your spouse or your family.
Absolutely,
Right.
absolutely.
Okay, so before we move to the retirement instruments that are out there in the market, one last thing I would like to ask you is that is there any other point that one needs to keep in mind while planning for retirement?
Uh, no, actually, it's fairly simple. You have to be disciplined about it. Is the point, right? You have to start building for it as early as possible. Like I said, determine your expenses right.
Hmm.
Set aside some amount every month so that you keep building it, and compounding helps you to have a reasonable corpus. Do not wait to time the market. If you're having lump sum bonuses at the end of the year,
Hmm.
then use that as well. Keep investing, have the right asset mix. Not necessarily everything has to go to equity, but at least start investing, and not thinking about your retirement corpus.
Hmm.
Ensure you're having, you're looking at the risk part of it as well.
Hmm.
You can One thing that people forget is also tax planning. So many ways, the government allows you to save taxes. We don't efficiently use it to pay the most optimal tax. So having the right
Hmm.
tax planning is ATC is of course one of them, but there are many such things that you can use as provisions that you can use to save taxes. Like I said, insurance, have a term plan, basis your
Hmm.
liabilities and expenses. Have a health plan. Again, health insurance is very important. And at some
Hmm.
point in time, you'll also have to look at estate planning, right? As Because the corpus that you build, you're going to live out, you're going to outlive it, right? So at the end of the day, you have to pass it on to the next generation. So
Hmm.
how do I plan for my estate, and how is it going to transfer so that there is no leakage when I'm transferring from one hand to the other? And there are several issues that happen if you don't have a will, etc. So all of these things, very simple, basic things of financial planning, basic, but people tend to complicate it. It's not as complicated as it sounds, to be honest.
All right. So before we move to the questions from the audience, one last thing I would like to ask you is, uh, can you just suggest the viewers some retirement instruments that are available in the market for debt as well as for equity part?
So, from a retirement perspective, I think I have a different view. There are a lot of products there out in the market. Of
Hmm.
course, the government has come out with a very good initiative on the NPS, which is the National
Hmm.
Pension Policy, or National Pension Scheme that you call, which of course helps you in terms of some tax saving, but there is no flexibility.
Hmm.
Your liquidity is not there with you, and the other part is NPS has fixed rules of, as soon as you start you're increasing your age, they start reducing the equity portion. So NPS, if somebody wants to do, only it should look from a debt perspective, not from an equity perspective.
Hmm.
uh, and then of course a lot of insurance companies come out with these retirement plans, but honestly very difficult to choose because they are so long term in nature, that if you're just doing one retirement plan and if you go wrong there,
Hmm.
imagine the status that you will be in when you're actually retiring, right? So I think
Hmm.
it's better to keep the control in your hands. Like I rightly said, have a simple mutual funds. Do
Okay.
SIP or lump sum in mutual funds from an equity perspective, and from a debt perspective, like I told you, NPS is one option. You have EPF, PPF, which is there. Of
Hmm.
course, takes care of a little bit of illiquidity apart there, but still very good debt, which is there from a retirement perspective. So these are the few options. You have also now gold as an asset class, in terms of sovereign gold bond fund. You can have some
Okay.
allocation there. Of course, gold is slightly volatile. It's doing quite well, but if you're buying, you can buy those sovereign gold bond funds, which will give you two and a
Hmm.
half percent extra interest over and above the gold appreciation. But overall, I think equity mutual funds, simple. Debt mutual funds, PPF, EPF, NPS, and SGB if you want to, SGB in the sense of sovereign gold bond funds if you want to add to it.
Hmm. All right. So let's quickly move towards the audience section, and I'll just pick questions that are relevant to our topic of the day. I'm not taking any question that is related to trading or any specific stock, so I'll be skipping those. The first one is by Karan. He's asking how much monthly SIP to be done for the corpus of 1 crore and how much time.
Okay, so of course that we'll have to do the math, but depending on how much time he has
Hmm.
in hand. Like I said, depending on what you're earning today, at least 20-30% of that should go as part of your investments. Do
Okay.
assessment. Get simple calculators on web also. You just put that number. Assumption that you need to do on SIP, I can say about 12% is a reasonable expectation,
Hmm.
because that's what the economy is likely to grow at from a nominal GDP perspective. So that kind of return is expected.
Hmm.
Like I said, you'll have to really, to get the numbers right, you'll have to put it on an Excel or on various tools which are available on the web.
Okay, all right. Another query is by Ritika. She's asking your views on SBI Contra Fund for 12 to 15 years.
Oh, this is part of our recommendation. So SBI Contra Fund is a very good fund. While the name Contra sounds different, because in the sense that they invest, Contra is supposed to invest where the market is
Hmm.
not investing today. So
Hmm.
from a long term perspective, but this fund has really generated good alpha and good returns over a period of time. So definitely she can look at SBI Contra from a
All
long
right.
term perspective.
Okay. Another query is from Vinod. He's asking how much time it required for the corpus of 2 crore rupees as I'm investing 20,000 rupees per month.
Okay. So of course, like I said, I'll have to do the math. It's not in front of me, but you can use simple tools which are available on the web. Just put
Hmm.
how many years you require. Assumption you need to take is 12%, and you'll get a sense of how long it will take to reach 12, 2 crores corpus.
Okay, okay. The last query I'm picking is by Manoj. He is asking how should we do lump sum investment into mutual funds? It's pretty easy though. Nowadays we have apps, but anything you would like to add, Chirag?
No, so several ways, like you said, you have apps which are there on the web that is available.
Hmm.
I'm sure. I think ET also has one app. where you can invest directly. You can also go on the asset management company websites. They allow you to invest directly. You can go through an advisor if you have any, and they'll help you to invest in them. So nowadays it's become very simple. These are the three ways you can probably invest into mutual funds.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, most of the apps have this option where you get SIP option and the lump sum option. So I'm sure, Manoj, you won't have any issue. Okay. So Manoj is basically asking about strategy. Okay. So he wasn't clear about the question. He's asking strategy for lump sum, I meant, as markets fluctuate a lot.
So of course, markets fluctuate a lot, but the long-term trajectory I mean, last 23 years, the markets have given about 13% compounding returns.
Hmm.
And going forward, currently where India is, I think we still expect for the next 3 to 4 years markets to perform in the same direction.
Hmm.
Even at this stage, I wouldn't be worried about nothing. But if you're really worried about that, then you have an option of something called a systematic transfer plan from
Hmm.
mutual funds, where you just put it into a debt fund or a liquid fund, and then they systematically transfer it to equity on a regular basis, so that you can average out your lump sum investments. But if you have a horizon of more than 5 years, I think you should not be worried at what level you're putting. Currently, also at this juncture, markets may
Hmm.
look like an all-time high, but from a
Hmm.
valuation perspective, it's fair, and from a earnings perspective, from next 2 3 years also is looking very good. So I will not be worried if I have 3 to 4 years in my hand.
All right. I hope that answers Manoj's question. The last query I'm picking is by a guest whose name is not there, anonymous. So he's asking about small cap index 250 fund, your views.
So small cap, of course, still has a lot of steam. I think currently is
Hmm.
about 15,500 is what it's trading at. It still is away from its peak. We were recommending small cap since last 1 year, and we
Hmm.
still feel that it's not a froth. There is some steam yet to go. So I think you can still go for that small cap 250 index if you have 3 to 5 years in your hand. It is
Hmm.
not overvalued because today small cap 250 itself is also, they are not very small companies. They are not micro cap companies. They are still reasonable
Hmm.
companies with good market caps and good liquidity, because most of the mutual funds or institutions invest into these small cap funds because wherever they have mandates, and they
Hmm.
usually stick to the small cap 250 index. So money flow is not an issue, A. And B is that the valuation itself is yet not stretched to that extent. So another 2 3 years, definitely you should look at small cap 250.
All right. Okay. So I think we're done with the queries. I do have some queries by Raghav, Ashish, and Deep. They all are asking about specific stocks. So my request to all of you is that you can join tomorrow to ask about these queries at around 1 p.m., because this is only limited to retirement planning in 40s. So I'm not taking these queries. So we are done with the session for today. Thank you so much, Chirag, for joining us today on ET Markets live stream and talking about retirement planning in 40s.
Thank you. Thank you, Neha, so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.